Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 362. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joanna Hennon. Today we talk about how to be more disciplined in life and how to make discipline a habit. This is a really juicy episode. We started out having two different perspectives on what discipline is and what it looks like and feels like to each of us. Interestingly, our perspective on discipline was also very different to the official dictionary definitions, and we were kind of shocked when we looked at what the dictionary considers discipline to be. So whether you already consider yourself to be a disciplined person or not, this episode will have something for you. I think I'm a pretty disciplined person, and I really got a lot out of this conversation. I think it really helped me understand why I'm good at being disciplined about certain things and why I'm not good at being disciplined at other things. So what will you learn in today's episode? We talk about what is discipline and why it's important. We discuss how discipline is different from willpower and hustle because some people get them all confused. We talk about how discipline is related to commitment, how to use discipline to achieve goals and make new habits. We ask the question, can anything ever be truly effortless? And should effortless really be the goal? Both of us have talked about things being easy and effortless a lot in the past. And so I think this is a really important question for us to ask in particular. We also discuss how discipline is related to the subconscious, how to get started being disciplined even if you think you're not good at it, and finally, how to develop discipline in your life and make it a habit. I hope you find this episode interesting and useful. I think it's super juicy. So without further ado, here is the conversation on discipline. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, Holly.
I'm super excited about our topic today.
We're always excited about our topics.
Not always. Sometimes you're a bit reluctant.
Okay, that's true. That's fair. That's fair.
So today we are talking about discipline. And you are actually the inspiration for today's topic, because this is something you've been thinking about. So tell us a little bit about how you brought this to the table, or why.
Well, I've been thinking about it because as part of the monthly message that I channeled for the month of June, which is the month we're in as we record this, the message was all about taking inspired action, and part of it was about leaning into discipline, but not so far as to go into hustle. And so it's been just something that I've been kind of playing with and thinking about. And in the Soul Space group that I run, somebody asked me, what's up with this discipline piece? Isn't that just pushing yourself to do stuff? Isn't that against everything that Soul Smart stands for and against this intuitive, flowy way of living? So I just thought it was a really good thing to get into because I've been thinking about it in my life as well. And yeah, so that's how it came up. Interestingly, when we started talking about discipline, we found that we weren't talking about the same thing. So Holly looked it up. You want to read out some of these definitions you found?
Yeah. So I looked up some dictionary definitions and they surprised me. They're not what I think of discipline as, some of them. So what is discipline? The ability to control yourself or other people, even in difficult situations. To teach someone to behave in a controlled way. The practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. Finally, using punishment to correct disobedience. Ew! I have a much more positive opinion of discipline than control, obey, correct, punishment. I think of discipline as being a really positive thing. Before we looked this up, what's your overall kind of feeling about discipline? I like it.
Well, I've been kind of playing with it for a few weeks right now, so I'm liking it a little bit more than I did. But I have to say that my kind of natural reaction would be along the lines of some of these definitions, maybe not like as far into like punishment, but kind of I would be coming at it from the perspective of like you wouldn't need discipline if it was something that was enjoyable to you. Like you wouldn't need to like call on discipline and willpower in order to do it then, because it'd be something that you would just do because you want to. So in my mind, it's always been kind of linked to, to getting yourself to do something that like, you should do, but you're not doing because it's hard.
Right. So how is discipline different from willpower then? Is it the same thing or?
I don't think so. I think like off the top of my head, because you've just surprised me with that question there, Holly. I think willpower is more internal. Like they've done studies on willpower and they found that we have like a finite amount.
Ew.
I know.
I don't like
which is
that.
why apparently you should do that stuff that requires willpower in the morning.
Huh?
Yeah. And also that you run out. So it's like, it's not a surprise that you're going to go for the cookies in the evening.
Okay. So do you run out each day? Do you have a finite amount of willpower, or is it like, when does it reset? Is it like weekly, monthly? Like how fascinating.
Yeah, apparently it's daily.
Oh.
I mean, gosh, now, since you haven't heard of this, I have no idea where I read this, but like I've read stuff about studies.
How fascinating.
Yeah, but it's still like willpower and all that. Like it's associated with a very kind of forceful way of living, right? Like making yourself do something that you don't enjoy, like maybe running at 5 a.m., right? Like setting the alarm for 5 and going running, or all the examples coming to me at the moment take place at 5 in the morning. I don't want to be up at that time.
Me neither. So as you were talking, I Googled the definition of willpower, and it's exactly what you're saying. So willpower is the ability to resist short-term gratification in pursuit of long-term goals or objectives. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that actually brings us nicely into probably the next and most important piece, which is that discipline and willpower. Like, I've come to the conclusion based on my own example, because I'm trying to lead a healthier lifestyle, let's say. So I'm trying to like lose the next bit of weight. I'm doing it in chunks, which is already kind of a very different way of approaching it than I used to in my life. So I'm kind of doing it in kind of few kilos at a time, and then I let things stabilize, and I kind of just like let go of it all and whatever, and then I do the next few kilos.
No, that's really interesting. So I've been on a weight loss journey for the last couple of years, and I use an app called Happy Scale, which breaks up your weight loss goals into milestones. And that to me has made it so much more manageable, so much easier to do, and so much more exciting. Like, I love Happy Scale. It's such a great app. So if anyone listening to this is trying to lose weight, Happy Scale is great, and we'll link to that in the show notes. But
cool. I totally get that. I think for me, it's
nice
more that I don't have to then, for me, the difference is that I don't have to then rely on my willpower or like think that I will have to exhibit like extreme willpower and discipline for the rest of my life. Like that just sounds really undoable. And then I start thinking, but what about this? Or what if I want this? Or what if it's my birthday? Or what if we go out? Or what if like, So this kind of gives me the flexibility to like for sprints. Rather than marathons.
Yes. I was just talking to Augustine about this last night, and I was saying, like, I miss just being able to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, because obviously I practice intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. So I have very specific eating schedules. And he said, well, yeah, of course. He was like, but there's going to be a point when you can do that. And I was like, I know, and that's what keeps me going. Like, when I get to a certain point in my weight, then I will probably always practice time-restricted eating, except on special occasions, because I just like it. It makes my life easier. But on my birthday, I'm going to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, because every once in a while, I need to do that.
But see, even there, like that really freaks me out, like having such a long-term perspective. So I don't want to only be able to do that when I reach my ultimate goal. Also, which is why I'm doing it in sprints.
Yeah.
So that I can kind of relax things at the end of each sprint, knowing that like it's unlikely that I'm going to regain everything in such a short period of time when I relax things and I move on. So I might like regain a little bit, but for me, like that journey of making it longer I don't know. It just worked for me. But that's so the discipline thing there, like I just don't, because the habits that I'm changing are so like deeply ingrained in me, like the amount of willpower and discipline that I would need is like for me insane. And it just wouldn't work otherwise. So that's kind of how I've been working with it. But
also your birthday's in December and mine's in July, so I get I get a crazy day very soon.
That's true. Yeah, and I mean, we have different aspects of lifestyle. I have a kid, which means that on weekends, like we have pancakes and things like, so there's kind of that kind of celebratory things we probably have more often than we would if there wasn't a child in the house.
Exactly.
So it's just a little bit different. So you have to, so you have to make things work for you, which is going to be eventually one of our main points. But back to discipline. So like the conversation that we need to have is discipline like pushing yourself? Is it always about forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do? Like, and if so, then why would you even do that? Like, like why would you want to be making yourself do something that you don't want to do, right?
Yeah. So I think it's a complex question. So first of all, is discipline pushing? I don't think so. Like, I don't feel like it has that hustle pushing energy, at least not to me. Does it feel like pushing to you?
I think it can.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like, okay, so I think the thing with discipline is that you can't really talk about it without talking about commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think this is the main thing, right? So of course it's going to be harder to really make yourself do something that you hate, but you think you should do, like, I don't know, like if I was trying to like clean my house every day, like that's that's just, that would be making myself do something, not just that I don't like doing, but also something that I don't find particularly important.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should do because of various like societal reasons, right? Now, just to underline, my house is reasonably clean. So
I've been there. I can attest to this. It's not a pigsty by any means.
It's a normal lived-in family home, right?
No, I think it's cleaner than normal, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay. So I think like the first thing to start with is like commitment. Like, what are you committed to? Like, what or what are you willing to commit to? Like, what changes do you want to see in your life? Like, what kind of person do you want to be? Like, I want to be a healthy, fit person. Like, I want to be one of those stories of a 40-something-year-old woman who turned it around. Like, I've been overweight pretty much my entire life. And I want to tell the story of how aged 40-something, I turned it around by finding my own way, by doing the things that I believe in and living in the way that I believe is the way, right? So I'm committed to that. Therefore, like that's a choice that I'm making. So the discipline is more a commitment to my vision than making myself do something that I don't really want to do with my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say the same. I mean, there are many things that I'm committed to and that I'm willing to put in the time and effort required to achieve them. Weight loss is one of them. Healthy eating is one. Fitness is another. Publishing my books.
Yeah. Writing is another that I have struggled with. Business in general. So like I am really committed to I don't really call myself a business owner anymore. I'm more in the writer, blogger, podcaster sphere. But like I'm committed to that. And what that means is that I'm committed to I'm committed to helping people to think about things in a different way so that they can grow.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can't do that without talking about stuff. Like, I can't do that without making sure that I show up and record podcast episodes with Holly. Right? Then if I like go back on those things, then I'm not committed to my vision. And yeah, it requires, not episodes with Holly. They don't really require any discipline because I love them. But
yeah, they do, because we've got to get them in the calendar.
But we do have to get them in the
calendar. And we have to show up.
That's true. And sometimes it's difficult. And I'm like, oh, today the gardeners are here. Next week something's busy. Like there's always something.
There's always something, yeah.
So it's true. It does require some discipline.
And I think that's another important thing, is that discipline, it doesn't have to be hard, but it does require putting in the calendar, showing up, and we enjoy doing these things. I mean, it's not hard. It's not hard and it's not suffering. So discipline comes in different forms, but it still requires time and effort.
But I think that's really key. I think we need to start with a vision that we actually want to bring in, right? That we actually want to align with or experience. Like, so discipline shouldn't be forced. I mean, it has to be forced to a certain extent, as in you have to like maybe push yourself to do a live stream about your opinion rather than like eat cookies, on your kitchen floor.
I hope you're not doing that ever.
That's never happened to me. I have no idea what I just thought. Maybe one of the listeners. My guides sometimes give me weird language, and it's always to do with the listeners. So I'm sure somebody out there, please let us know if it's you who's sitting on the kitchen floor and eating cookies. Please let us know so that it's sorted. No, it just, if you're committed to showing up and instead you're hiding in your kitchen, then, then, yeah, I just think like you have to start with a vision that you actually want to bring forward. And this, for example, like I have a client who hates doing videos. So I'm still working with some people about on setting up, basically on getting their business or their work life into alignment with what really like lights them up. Right. Yeah. And so she hates doing videos, and she's like, but I have to have the discipline to do a video a week. And I'm like, why? Yeah. Like, you don't have to. You could do a blog post instead and use writing, so yes, she could go through the process of making herself. And there's a whole school of thought about that, right? That we need to push ourselves outside the comfort zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't come from that space anymore, because I think it's much nicer and easier to focus more on to start with making sure that the vision that you're bringing in is something that you actually want to be doing, and that's what you actually want your life to look like.
And I think it's very interesting, the language that you use, because I think there's a huge difference between pushing yourself outside the comfort zone and choosing to step outside your comfort zone. Because I find it super rewarding when I step outside my comfort zone and I do something that's scary. But it's choosing to make that step rather than being like, I've got to push myself to do it.
Yeah. So one is mean and one is kind, right? And so the kind way is to not push yourself outside the comfort zone, but to align first. Yeah. And then go. Then step outside. It's still going to be uncomfortable, but if you find a way that works for you. So as an example, like I was running, like I wanted to be a runner. And I realized that in order to like be classified as a runner, I would actually have to go running.
Fancy that.
I know. It was really shocking and really unpleasant. So I pushed myself to go running. Okay. And for a while, like it brought me joy. And then I completed not even anything huge, but I completed like a part of my program that I thought like I would never be able to do. And then I lost interest. And so keeping up with running became really hard because I had no interest in it anymore. It's like I proved to myself that I could do what I thought I couldn't do, and then I had zero interest. I no longer see myself as wanting to be a runner.
So, okay, this is really fascinating.
Okay,
so,
so go on.
So what stopped you from setting a new goal to be challenged by within the running sphere?
I thought about it, but it wasn't exciting to me.
So maybe that was just it.
maybe that was just it. Maybe it'll come back, or maybe I'll be a, fall only, as in like the season fall only runner, because that's when I like to go to the park. What became more exciting to me was consistency. And so right now I'm playing with the discipline of taking some kind of exercise every day. So it's not, so far none of it has been running. So what I'm allowing myself is to show up every day and just ask myself, okay, what's the exercise that I'm going to do today? It's either walking or cycling, or like we have a stationary bike at home. So it's never been running. I haven't never been like, I'd love to go running. So I don't know if it's done or if it's just done for this season or what, but like, I'm not forcing myself to do running specifically.
Because it's no longer important to you. And I think that's the important thing is these things change. So it's not like if I choose to be disciplined in this thing, which is running or anything else, insert whatever, doesn't mean that you have to do that for the rest of your life until you die. You reevaluate as you go along because the things that are important to you change with the seasons, with the weeks, with the days, with the months, with the years. So you got to be constantly reevaluating what's important to you and what do you choose to be disciplined about.
Right. So like I'm committed to living a healthy, fit lifestyle, but that doesn't have to be running. It could be like 100,000 other things.
Yeah.
And so I'm letting myself just go with whatever feels like the thing in that moment. And sometimes it means just a gentle walk around the lake because I'm tired. And sometimes I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take the bike, and I'm going to go up that hill that I can never quite manage. So it does have like the nuances on different days. And it's still discipline to ask myself the question of how am I going to exercise today? Right? Still takes some discipline. But it's not a forcing myself to do a particular thing that I decided a year ago or that people, say I should do because that's the best form of exercise.
Which is not true. Yeah.
So you have to start with a vision of what you want your life to look like. I want my life to be really pleasant. I no longer want to be defined by achievement, which means, and right now, running would be achievement based. And I don't want to be defined by that right now. So my choices are slightly different, but it starts with the vision. Yeah, it does. Yeah, that leads me to something that I've been thinking about lately, which I need to choose for and start doing, is with, now with the lockdown, like I haven't had kickboxing classes because you can't see people, but they've been doing online classes every day. And I haven't been able to do them because my house is super small. I don't have space to do them. The live classes are during the day when I'm working and my husband's working. We both work from home. And I haven't also listened to the recorded classes because I'm not been disciplined to do it, but also like the only space in the house that I have to do it is essentially his office. So it's like either I wake up early in the morning when I'm not in the mood to do it, or like it's just not happening. But one thing that I can do, and I actually made a spreadsheet yesterday and printed it out and haven't started yet, is practicing kicks, which I can do waiting for my tea to boil. So I actually printed out a plan on Monday, like every day of the week, the different kicks to do, and then I can tick them off. Right. So you're going to need some discipline, though, to do that, right? Because now you've had several months of not doing it. Yeah. So, like, I think, like, thinking about discipline as, like, help to change habits. Yes. That's exactly it. And that requires some effort because your habits are rooted in your subconscious. It's what you've always done. It's what you think is the safe way. It's what you think is the most beneficial way to live your life because of subconscious beliefs. So it's kind of like going, because I mean, your subconscious rules, like, what is it, 95% of everything you do? I mean, it's some kind of crazy number, right? 90%, 95%. So by using discipline, you're going against that, and you're kind of like rewiring yourself to make different choices until those become your normal choices. And then you'll use discipline to maybe do something else. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So Yeah, I think like the habit way is a nice way of looking at it. And then if we go back to our original question, like, is it against living an intuitive, soul smart, flowy lifestyle? No, because a soul smart lifestyle is an intentional, above anything else. It's an intentional lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? And that starts with a vision of how you want your life to be. And it includes making some choices that will be different to the choices you're currently making and choices you made in the past, because those choices got you to where you are right now. And so to create whatever else you want to create, or experience whatever else you want to experience, you're going to have to do some different stuff. Like that's clear, right?
Yeah. You're going to have to make different choices. You're going to have to take different actions. You're going to have to make new habits.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of like creating a new normal, right?
Yes.
So my new normal is that I do some form of movement every day.
Yeah.
And that's unthinkable for like, now I'm not going to say unthinkable. Even like a month ago, it was unthinkable for me to be that kind of person. And already I'm starting to think of myself as the kind of person who does something every day. Like, even if it's like a 20-minute yoga thing, I do something every day.
That's a huge shift in 1 month.
Yeah.
It's huge. That's massive.
Yeah. Because I think it kind of shifts quite relatively quickly. I imagine that, like, if we go on holiday and I do nothing, it'll shift back.
Yeah. Well, it'll shift to something else. Quickly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think thinking about it in terms of habits is really, really helpful.
I agree. And habits are usually something, I mean, obviously you're going to be choosing for habits that you want to have rather than something that you think you should have.
Well, I think that's really key to think about, when you think about, what you currently feel like requires discipline. And ask yourself, like, is that something that you really want, or is it something that you think you should want?
Yeah.
And that I think there you'll find real gold, and I really believe that it doesn't, like, if it's something feels too hard, then it's probably not your way. Like, there's something misaligned there. So I do believe that, but I don't believe in truly effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have to put in the time and the effort. But I think this is interesting because for so long, like when I was working with Psyche a lot, and when I was creating belief statements and working with myself and working with clients, effortless was such a key word for me. I would always like program statements that, like, it's easy and effortless for me to blah, blah, blah. And so effortless was the goal for me for so long. But really, we have to put some effort in if we want to change things and do different things. I think it was more like I wanted it to feel effortless.
Yeah, and that's different, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can still have that.
Yeah.
Like, it's feeling pretty effortless for me to go for a walk, but only because I've allowed myself to not force myself to go running.
Yeah.
Because I've allowed myself to be aligned and like search for the way that makes me feel good that particular day, it's relatively effortless. And, to be honest with you, like, I also have the choice of not doing anything. Like, nobody's forcing me to do anything.
Of course.
And I know, I understand that. So it's a choice, right? But it's effortless because it's aligned. So it doesn't mean I don't have to do anything. But I'm doing things in ways that fulfill me, that make me feel good. And that, that benefit me in some real way. But I think the whole effortless conversation has first of all, I think it's rooted in something really, really important. And that's that, like, all of us are really fucking tired.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, being raised as overachievers and living as overachievers is just exhausting. So I'm not surprised that everybody's like wanting effortless. Right. But I think, like, once you kind of go that direction, you can find things that feel effortless.
That's the thing. It's the difference between something feeling effortless and actually being effortless.
Yeah. And I think, like, we should be having more conversations about the things that you think are worth the effort.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, again, like, it's a matter of commitment to a certain vision. And So I'll give you a non-weight loss or running example. In the current Black Lives Matter conversation, I would like to commit to being part of the change, right? I don't exactly know how to do that. It's a very big statement, but I would like to be part of the change, right? So that's my vision that there is change and that I in some way contribute to the change in a way, however small, right? Now, yesterday, I was witness to a thing where someone was basically defending racism. They were saying, they were saying that they're not defending racism, but the stance was for me, quite clearly like denying racism, let's say. They were denying racism, systemic racism. And so I had a choice in that moment to do nothing, which is easier.
Yeah.
Certainly more effortless.
Yeah.
Right? Or to say something. The thought process that I had was to remind myself that I wanted to be committed to being part of the solution, part of the change. And that means calling it out when I see it, calling racism out when I see it. Was it effortless? Hell no. I was terrified of what the person would say back to me. I was terrified what other people in that group would say. Like, it was uncomfortable and it was like in no way effortless.
And
but
it was a step outside of your comfort zone.
And it was certainly a step outside of my comfort zone. But it was in alignment with my commitment to not only to myself and the kind of person I want to be, but also to the kind of world that I would like to live in. And that is a discipline, right? To be willing to make the choices that stand for not where you are now, but where you want to be. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So why is discipline so important?
Because otherwise we'll just be acting from our current subconscious. So nothing will ever change.
And will never change, and we'll still be doing the same things. And I think
because it's consistency that matters, right?
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it doesn't matter if you fast one day. Yeah. You have to fast for a series of days.
Yeah.
In order to see the results that you want.
Yeah. So no matter how good my life is right now, and my life is pretty good, I don't want to be here forever. Like, I want to do other things. I want to achieve other things. I want to accomplish things. And all of that stuff takes discipline. So, I don't want to be stuck in the same place forever, no matter how good it is.
Yeah, indeed. And I think anybody listening to our conversations also wants to make some kind of change, right? Like, it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily like miserable with something, but there's something that you would like to see different in your life, in the world, like something. And that requires people to take different actions, and that requires consistency, because we know that calling racism out one time isn't going to do anything.
No, it's a start.
It's a start.
And as you said about something else, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like, we need to kind of keep choosing for... Or actually, you said it's a sprint, not a marathon.
I know, I was laughing.
Okay, so some things are a sprint, not a marathon, and some things are a marathon, not a sprint. That's why we have two different types of running. We have the 100-yard dash. We have like all different types of track and field.
There's lots of running talk on this in this episode. Is it a sign? Should I go back to running? No, it's important because I think discipline is important for consistency, and it's very easy to kind of give up on new things. And everybody knows like how easy it is. You start some kind of new routine, you want to change something, you get all fired up, and by day 5, you're like, meh, I want a cookie, right? And so it all kind of it all falls, and you forget, and then you get caught up in something else. So the discipline is important to get the momentum going, right? Like the discipline. Like, I might not have changed anything with my one comment, but maybe some of the resources I suggested were taken up by somebody who didn't take part in the conversation but saw it. Maybe I inspired someone to speak up in another situation where they see something similar. Like, you don't know what momentum your discipline is going to create. And the same thing, like in things that are just for your own life or for your own business. If you have the discipline to show up for your writing every day, it's going to be, you're going to see some kind of result.
Yeah.
And there's magic there, like I've very clearly noticed that when I show up and write like even 500 words a day, at the end of the week, I have something. Whereas if I show up, I have nothing.
Right.
Right?
Right. And again, it's about doing what works for you. Because every time I hear someone say, every time I show up and write every day, I'm like, oh, I don't want to write every day, or I can't write. Like I write in chunks of time on vacation weekends, or big chunks of time. But so it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. I don't have big chunks of time. So if I was waiting for a big chunk of time, it would never happen. Like exactly. I have to write in like windows between things.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being very small bits. I also get bored really quickly. So I write several things at the same time. So I have if you saw like my computer right now, you would not be happy. Holly's actually making a face. I have like several different documents open. And when I have time to write, see like which one I want to write into. Exactly what you're not supposed to do.
No. That's really important that you said that, because if it works for you, it works for you. For me, I would just be totally overwhelmed. Like I have like all of my workations planned out between now and the end of the year, what I'm going to work on each month. And that's what I'm going to work on each month. Like
I'm making a face.
Yeah, I know. Now, I need that kind of structure, and you need that kind of like flexibility.
Yeah. So just again, discipline doesn't have to look in any one way either. And it doesn't have to be, I think like it's just important to relate discipline to the commitment that you've made. So like I've made a commitment to be a writer, and therefore I need to write. Now, if I was waiting for like to have a free weekend when I could go away, I'll be waiting forever. Right. So because in my personal situation, it's more difficult. It has different constraints. And so this is the way it works for me, and I fulfill the commitment I have made to myself and to the vision for my life.
Mm-hmm.
So
the important thing is, if you want to be disciplined, you have to choose to be disciplined.
Yeah. So first you have to choose for what you want and what to be disciplined about. And that's, I think that's the most important part, to not just like, I don't know, like not choose to be disciplined about like everything and anything or whatever, like what your mother said was important or what the magazine says is important, or, I think that if you spend like a significant amount of time like working out what it is you actually want, your vision. I come back to the vision because I think that's the most important piece. Everything comes from that. Then the discipline will look very different. And even the choosing for the discipline will be a lot easier because you'll know why you're doing it.
Yeah. And also when you're looking at being disciplined and making changes and creating new habits, start small and don't try to make too many changes at once. As you're talking about this, I'm reminded of this very dear friend of mine who always would go through this habit. Like every few months, she'd be like, okay, I've decided I'm going to start doing yoga every day, and I'm going to go for a run every evening, and I'm going to quit smoking, and I'm going to start being vegan, and I'm going to do, like, she would have like 7 or 8 like huge lifestyle changes that she'd be like, from now on, I'm doing all of these things. And I would just be like, okay. And then she would fail because it was so many big changes, so many lifestyle changes at once. And rather than just picking one, making it a habit, and then picking the next one, she would try to do everything at once. So don't do that. It can be overwhelming, and it probably won't work.
Yeah, you'll lose steam very quickly.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about this, I just want to give another example of something to be disciplined about, where I think everything in my life is coming from, because like what you've just illustrated is kind of like that point between discipline and hustle, where you go into just the doing, pushing. And that's not what this is about, right? Yeah. So it makes me think that the main commitment that I have in my life, to myself, to my vision, etc., is to feel good in my life. That's the main commitment I have. So so I am very disciplined about that commitment and about making everyday choices that honor that commitment, which is why I will not go running if that's not what feels good to me that day. Though I will take some form of exercise because I know that makes me feel good, even if I don't want to go. Right?
Yeah.
So you could have like an overarching commitment in your life that you can like filter the other things that you might need to be disciplined, or you might choose to be disciplined about through. Does that make sense?
So we've kind of hinted at this and we've touched on it a little bit, but what's the difference between discipline and hustle? Because I really don't like the word hustle and I do like the word discipline. So to me, they have very different energies.
I really think like hustle is just doing. It's that kind
pushing.
Of doing. Yeah, pushing forward, and like it feels exhausting. Like it's the sort of thing that leads to burnout.
Yeah.
Right? It's that kind of pushing energy that leads to burnout. I think discipline can be softer when it's aligned. Like I really can't underline that enough, that everything has to start from that vision. And that discipline doesn't have to, again, like discipline doesn't even have to be about doing. It doesn't have to be about specific habits. Like you could start by choosing to feel good in your life and being disciplined about that. And what does that mean? If you're disciplined about that, it means that when something does not feel good, you're going to stop it. And you're going to reassess, realign, like whatever it is, right?
So how do you develop discipline? How can people listening to this make discipline a habit? I think it starts, as you said, from, first of all, focusing on what you do want, not what you don't want. And getting clear on what you do want. Because I think so many people, and this was myself for many, many years, I didn't like what I had. I knew I didn't like it. I didn't want that. But it was like I didn't know what I wanted instead.
Yeah, I think that vision is the most important piece. And it's certainly like in everything that I run and all my programs and everything, like that vision is the first piece. And we do visioning workshops regularly, as you know, Holly. And like it's just because without that kind of anchoring you can't really be intentional, because you have to be intentional about creating something specific, even if it's like unspecific in terms of you're just creating a happy life. Like there has to be something guiding you. Otherwise you can't really be intentional, because you have to be intentional about something, right?
Yeah.
So I think like figuring out what you do want, and one question to ask yourself, like if you look at some of the things in your life that maybe you feel you need a lot of discipline for, or maybe you want to be more disciplined about, ask yourself not just if it's really what you want, but like why you think you want to do those things.
And make sure it's something that you want. Because again, if you're not clear on your vision and if you're not clear on what you want for your life, then you'll fall into the shoulds that other people will give you. Your family, your friends, your colleagues. Oh, you should want this, you should want that, you should do this, you should do that. Because you don't have your own vision.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're being fed vision every single day through all sorts of things. You should want this kind of lifestyle. You should want to work from the beach. You should want to take vacations in Bali. You should want this sort of thing. You should want this sort of body. And those things are manipulated to make you feel a certain way. Like I'm going to just stop talking about this right now, because otherwise I'm going to go into a huge long rant and this episode will never end. But like, I've realized how passionate I am about how like society and the messages that we're getting, how they're all designed to keep us in a certain place. And I didn't really realize how passionate I was about this until I'm pretty much done with the first part of my book, and like it's really just come out in there. Once I allowed myself to write that piece, it's really come out. And I think you have to be really careful about your vision and what you actually want, and just become really aware of like the messages you're being fed about what you should be disciplined about. About what you should want in your life.
You should be a runner.
you should be a runner, right? Right. It's not, I mean, there should be a runner. I don't see the messages as much as the high interval training stuff. Like,
oh, I hate that stuff.
Like that everywhere I look, like that is
Really?
the exercise.
Huh?
And I've tried it. Like I've actually
I
paid
hate
for a
it.
program,
Hmm.
which I quickly quit after failing my first burpee. I don't think this is for me. But like I got sucked into it because that's what everybody says is that like the best thing for your body and the thing that's going to keep you alive, basically, right?
That's a big warning.
I know, but I think you just get, if we just get collectively curious about the stuff that we're being fed, and just kind of start coming. I mean, this sounds maybe a bit like of a suspicious way to live, but just start assuming that like everybody has an agenda, and so start looking behind what what they're saying to see like what kind of agenda they might be pushing. I think life gets really, really interesting. It doesn't mean that you don't buy those magazines or watch those TV shows. It just means that you're more aware of like where that ends and where your energetic space begins. So it's a slightly different conversation, but I think it relates to discipline because I think we are fed a lot of stuff about what we should be disciplined about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've touched on this as well, but how is discipline related to the subconscious? And you and I are both Psych-K facilitators. We've both worked on consciously reprogramming our subconscious minds with belief statements. We've done a lot of subconscious work in the past. And I think this is a totally different way of approaching the subconscious mind. But as you've said, when we do take different actions consistently and when we are disciplined, we are actually rewiring our subconscious mind by forming these new habits.
Yeah. So one way that the subconscious learns is through repetition. So even discipline of thought, right? Even discipline when it comes to like no longer thinking I'm poor.
Yeah.
Like I used to say poor me all the time. Like, and my family says it all the time. Oh, if anything happens, oh, poor you, poor you. And I made a really conscious effort just not to use that word anymore.
Yeah.
Even though the contexts were different. So it wasn't like financially poor.
Yeah.
Still, like it has that meaning, obviously. So like even discipline of thought and not using certain words anymore, like, and using different phrasing instead, like that creates change in your subconscious because your subconscious takes those repeated things as the new truth, right? So if you actually actively no longer feed it the old truth and start feeding it the new truth, this is why affirmations work and why they don't work if you do it one day, right? Like if you do it one day, you're not going to believe the affirmation.
Unless you turn them into belief statements and you use Psych-K to reprogram them.
Yeah, even then, like I think it takes a bit of time to recalibrate. Like,
oh, absolutely.
So I think, and discipline is, of course, you can have discipline of thought, and in terms of discipline of action, it's also repetition, right? So the subconscious learns through repetition, and so you can reprogram old stuff.
Yeah. Yay. So how do you get started being disciplined if you think you're not good at it? Like, I think a lot of people just believe, I'm just not a disciplined person. I'm just not good at that. It's just not me. I can't.
The first step is to figure out what you want. Like, I know, like we're saying that, or I'm saying that constantly, but that is like, if you feel like you don't have discipline, then question the things that you were trying to be disciplined about.
Question why you want them.
Yeah. And find something that you really can commit to. And you'll find that the discipline comes a lot easier. Also, if you if you still find that you're undisciplined, okay, I would ask myself then, like some really, really kind of maybe harsh and difficult questions about why you're not willing to commit to a certain thing. like why you're not willing to commit to a vision. Sometimes it's scary to commit to a vision because you might think it's not going to happen because this or that. This is why it's important that those things that you're disciplined about or that you're choosing to be disciplined about are aligned, are right for you, like feel good in some way, right? Like going outside for my daily walk or whatever. In the end, it feels good to me. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Like I might not feel like I want to go when I'm leaving, but like I don't dislike actually being there, right? That commitment piece is really, really important. And otherwise you're just drifting. And if you want to be a drifter, then that's fine. Right? But then just stop thinking about discipline and stop kind of judging yourself as bad at discipline. Just choose to not be disciplined because you just want to drift through life, and that's fine.
And also understand the consequences of that.
Yeah, indeed. Like, then don't complain that something isn't happening, or like me with my food and my body stuff, my weight stuff. Like, I didn't particularly want to be disciplined about anything, but that's just because I think it's just I didn't find my way. Once I tried a bunch of different things and kind of found my way around it, the discipline, it's much easier to be disciplined. So play around with it. Like, if you think you're not good at it, it's just that you're committed to the wrong thing, or you haven't identified what you're actually choosing to be committed to.
Yeah, I think that's good. And always asking yourself, like, this thing that I'm choosing, is it worth the effort? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe you need to tweak the vision or the goal or the objective and make it different, or make the path to getting there different. It's like, I'm talking about weight loss and exercise a lot, but like, you know, I used to go to the gym every day, and that it was a big part of my life, and I loved it. And now I'm not a gym person. There are so many other things I would rather do. Fitness is important to me, but I'm not going to go to the gym.
Yeah. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s and I lived alone and had like no responsibilities and all that kind of thing, I used to get up at like 7:30 on a Saturday morning and go to a ballet class.
Oh.
So I would go to the ballet class, and then I would come home and have something to eat, and then I'd go to the gym. That was my life. And I loved it. I loved both those classes so much that I still miss them. So people looked at me and were like, wow, you're so disciplined. But it's what I choose to do with my time. Like, it brings me something. Yeah. It's a choice.
Yeah. And it was your way. It was your things that you love. Like, to me, the idea of going to a ballet class, hell no.
So just think about it as a choice of the things that are right for you. Like, I mean, we could say a lot about this, but.
Yeah, no, that's such an interesting example, because you just said ballet, hell no. When I was in second grade, I remember a bunch of the girls were doing ballet. And so I thought, oh, well, this is what girls do. They do ballet, so I guess I should sign up as well. And so I remember telling my mom that I wanted to do ballet, and I hated it. It was that combination ballet tap dance. I hate dancing. Oh my God, it was so awful. But I did it because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, because that's what all the other girls were doing, and I hated it.
See, and my story is the exact opposite. Like, when I was maybe a little bit older, maybe 4th grade, 5th grade, all the girls were doing dance and ballet and tap dance, exactly the class you were describing. And I really wanted to do it. My parents wouldn't let me. They wouldn't pay for it. So if you went to a ballet class right now, it would be like trying to be something you're not.
Yeah.
Me, I'm going back to exactly who I am. Yeah. Right? So same action, totally different story. And so different amounts of discipline, willpower required, because for one of us, it's the right thing. And for one of us, it's not.
Yeah. So wrapping this up, discipline does not mean doing stuff that you hate. If it's too hard, then maybe the vision isn't right, or the path isn't right. You haven't found your right way. I love fasting. Other people hate fasting. Do what works for you.
And also, it doesn't have to be that black and white either. Like, there are shades of gray. So Holly says, I love fasting. Some people hate fasting. I love fasting on some days. Yeah. Like, my whole life lesson is to not take one of the extremes, not take yes or no, but take the sometimes path. Like, I've seen this in everything that I do. And I always end up there. That is always the most aligned way for me. So I love fasting on some days, and some days I don't. And it works for me. Yeah. But that's the most important thing. Exactly. So my commitment and my discipline is more to myself and making sure that I do the things that work for me on a particular day. So just so you know, you can play with this in lots of different ways. And it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be that harsh. It doesn't have the lines between different choices don't have to be that hard. Yeah, exactly. So find out what you want and then choose what you want to be doing and then do it.
Implement. Yes. It's that simple.
Right. We're done.
Yes, we are done. So hope you found this interesting and useful. Let us know what you thought about this week's episode. You can find us online and get in touch, or you can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or Joanna.
There's something wrong with my email, so please just either PM me on Facebook or DM me on Instagram. I love talking about this stuff, so do let us know what you think.
Yay! And be disciplined if you choose.
Bye.
Bye. That's all for now. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. Furthermore, if you have any ideas for conversations that you would like me to have with Joanna on this podcast or things you'd like me to talk about on my own, please let me know. Also, I would love for you to join me on Patreon. If you head to patreon.com/Holly Wharton, you can join me there. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you get exclusive access to stuff I don't share anywhere else, including a monthly Q&A. And you can also get access to all of my ebooks for free, depending on what tier you sign up at. Finally, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, I will be back with another solo episode. Not sure what I'm talking about yet, but it will be me. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/362 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.